Hello and welcome, Paladins fans, to a very special episode of Dev Q&A here. I'm HiRezPrettyHair. This is Drybear. We are here in Pecky's production lair today.
We stole it. We stole
Yeah.
some chairs and we snuck in here just so we can kind of get some information out to you guys.
That's right. There's a lot of changes here. A lot of you guys have a lot of questions, feedback, and it's all very understandable here. We just want to come sit down, have a chat with you about us. We're going to be taking questions from my Twitter, Drybear's Twitter, Twitch chat, anywhere you guys want to reach out to us. We will be open and receptive to all of your feedback and questions for the next, hour or so.
All right, here we are.
All right, so the biggest one, we'll start with the dragon in the room here. Mr. Drogos got some changes to the way that he flies.
Yes.
And basically, what you were allowed to do was a bit of an exploit. It wasn't intended. You were retaining your falling momentum after thrusting with your booster and just getting crazy amounts of distance covered with just one propel. So can you explain the changes made to how Drogos' flight works?
Sure. So it's something, when we look at the champions, we like to kind of capture what it is that we feel the community and the top level players and also us as devs kind of enjoy about the character. And one thing that, is important to look at as we're looking at the champion, we like the fact that he fits in the damage role, right?
Yeah.
We enjoy that he has the kind of big burst damage. The fire spit has a lot of control,
Sure.
a lot of knockback. On a short cooldown with the card modifications. But, when we're looking at it, the system we added looked at more of the long distance or the high peak speeds that he was able to hit with boosters. So the way it used to function, which originally was actually more of an unintended consequence or more of a bug, was once you hit booster, you could actually maintain any level of velocity or any level of momentum once you got up in the air. So good Drogos players, as you saw, I'm sure throughout the discussions this morning, and thank you guys for kind of having all those kind of threads on Reddit and forums and Twitter. I've been reading through all those late last night and this morning. It's kind of been interesting to see what the reaction has been. But more, you get propel, worm jets, you get up into the apex, and as you fall, you get to kind of boost down through the glide and get a really fast momentum in the air that you can maintain for long distances.
Yeah, the retention.
So the concern was that, as a damage character, he was actually hitting more of like flank level mobility, able to kind of wrap around in very aggressive ways. At the competitive level, he was actually able to overcome some of the issues he had as a core damage character by moving faster than other champions. So the system we put in, just to kind of be transparent and talk to you guys a little bit about it, that shows the kind of tools we now have to tweak him as we go into future patches, is when he hits a certain speed level, the game will actually allow him to go to very, very high speeds. But then as he gets higher and higher, the system will periodically kind of dampen him down back to what the core speed of booster is. So faster you're going, the faster it'll pull you back to that level. So we have 3 new stats that we'll tweak with Drogos. Is one, what the base speed of booster is. We could raise that, we could lower that, we could obviously worm jets adjust that, so you can have some control with that in the cards modification system. So we can adjust that stat. There's also one where how high can he go, right? How high is he able to go in the momentum and velocity department? The third one is how fast does it pull him back, right? So we could very easily kind of move around that number to make sure that allows him to stay at higher velocities for long periods of time. We actually do like the fact that he can get really strong bursts of speed, and that's what we're trying to kind of double down on, is maybe even making thrust better or the initial part of boost better, so he can actually quickly reposition or drop out of the sky or get around a corner very quickly. The one thing that we were trying to target with this patch that made him a little bit more of a flank character was his ability to carry that over longer distances, right? Able to kind of get a very long distance wrap around. Where he's actually able to flank, in some cases, a lot better than most flank champions at that distance. So, in future patches, as we look around it, we'll kind of do some adjustments to those tweak numbers to see if we want to come play around with that. We actually, an oversight on our part, I think, was just not realizing how much people really focused on that, because a lot of the feedback around Drogos was the control of the fire spit, the forward momentum that the propel gave you that's still there, having that motion there, but being able to kind of control that as a top end, so he's not just kind of turning into a jet plane, which that's what it's all for, right?
Yeah, and that was a lot of fun and all that, but you brought up an interesting point to me before we actually went live, just the design of the maps and intentions where you can get to within certain points. You were saying Drogos just spawned, but he was already on top of me, back on one of our flank routes. Talk a little bit about how, characters just can't break the map design when they're being able to get this crazy mobility as a damage character, a character that's not even really intended to be able to get around the map that quickly. I'm a big Eevee player. I'm used to the mobility, and getting outraced by Drogos would be a little frustrating at times.
Right, and that's kind of what we like about Eevee, right? There's certain champions that we know that we're saying mobility is their thing, right? I mean, Eevee has a blink, a soar, and then an ice block to get her back into the action, or wait enough time for her motion or mobility abilities to come off cooldown, right? So her thing is the movement. And then when you look at some of the kind of card shifts we've had on Eevee, or the way we're kind of adjusting her, giving feedback, is we want to make sure that mobility stays core to her kit. We don't want to ruin that, right? So if Eevee is overperforming, that we want to target, you know, the things that allow that to be super abusable, or maybe look at her damage or some other things to make that, but make sure she doesn't lose that, right? And when we're looking at Drogo's, mobility over long distances wasn't really meant to be his thing, right? So if this kind of change affects him drastically, or you look at future patches of the results, that's when we can start looking at, you know, giving him more health so he can survive in the air longer, or giving him more weapon damage, or making fire spit even better, or maybe even kind of looking at his ult again to see if that's kind of a balancing point for him to make sure that that is uniquely Drogo's, and it's not over distance. And then looking at the maps themselves, like you said, I mean, you play Eevee a lot, being able to know that when you're going up against an Eevee, you can actually expect that. You'll look up, you'll look at certain different flank routes, you'll watch around in the sky knowing that she's coming. But Drogo's is a little bit different in that sometimes he'll do that with the right cards, or if the player's good enough to abuse kind of how the tweak worked on the booster. And sometimes he wouldn't. He would play more normally. He'd go up in the air, he'd come down and shoot down on you. So we want to kind of make sure that that wasn't too much of a drastic switch.
Yeah. Another big one is actually people are concerned about the HP bars no longer changing to yellow and then red as you fall down. It's kind of like a quick peripheral check. Is there any real insight as to why that was changed, or is that something that might stick, or is it something easily reverted?
Yeah, you know what? Screw it. So we actually are working on our new frontline champion. He's not coming next, but his whole thing, let's just talk about it. His whole thing is he's all about kind of personal shields and controlling shields, projecting shields, stealing shields. So we've actually done a lot of work in anticipation of that champion to improve the presentation and the way that you perceive shields. So a lot of what came in this patch was part of that. So
oh boy,
jumping ahead, why not? That's what these are about, right? So yes, a lot of that kind of is making sure that when you have a shield on someone, because there's not really any people in the game other than Dire Need for Fernando that can project shields onto other people. So we actually did some tech work to make sure that the health bar presents the shield in a proper way. Because obviously when a shield comes on, sometimes you may not know what the current health percentage is of the champion. So if you see any shields on anybody, you'll actually notice that it shows the current health amount. It shows the shield health amount, but it actually will still show the amount of missing health as a total, and it actually will scale the tick marks accordingly. So we did a lot of work to make sure that works in anticipation of this new champion that's coming in the future. So that way you can have a good presentation. Now, obviously, previously we didn't have any representation of shields in first person, right? When you're looking at your own personal camera, the health bar in the corner, it kind of changed colors there. Now there will be, and again, there's not enough in the game right now other than Dire Need and maybe a couple other pieces, the Grox Totem, Dynamic War, those kind of things, to give you a personal shield. But if you did, you'd see that actually now personal shields will show up in your first-person camera and represent on the health bar. Your health bar will actually stretch and then get more tick marks on it. It'll show your current health. So all that was intended to kind of be supportive of the tech we needed for this new shield character. Then as we go forward in the next patch, we'll adjust the presentation of it and that kind of thing.
Gotcha. So those projected shields will show up, adjust the tick marks and show up as like yellow shield HP?
Yellow shield HP, and it'll show total health plus the shield as total, and then if you lose health but you still have shield, you'll see how much health is missing. And the reason we wanted to do this, so if you're a healer and someone's bubbled, if you don't do that, you actually don't know how much HP they have, and you don't know if you can actually heal them, right? Because it shows the shield as that until the shield is depleted, and then it'll show the actual health. She wanted to adjust the mechanism so you could actually see, okay, they're at 50% health. There's a shield on them, but they're still at 50% health, and the whole thing squishes so you can see that. So you know, oh, this is a valid target to heal. I'm playing Grox or Pip. I can actually throw it and heal them, even though they still have a shield on top of them.
Perfect. Awesome. This is a good one here that kind of got cut off due to the storm there on the Patch Notes show. Right when we were getting into the anti-cheat and what was actually implemented recently, I believe to all clients.
We're rolling it out, So one thing to stress there is, you know, we kind of had, you know, our anti-cheat that we inherited from Tribes and Smite and things kind of targeting there, and you know, just given the community feedback, we wanted to kind of even go to a higher echelon, way beyond that. Right? We have this entry that works, and it's important to stress that we are. You know, currently we're banning thousands of players every month, right? We're actually actively banning a lot of people. But this is kind of just another added layer that will give us a new kind of tweak. So obviously you may have noticed that when you kind of launched the patch for 39, you may have been asked to install new prerequisites. This is kind of along the lines of easy anti-cheat, and we'll keep kind of in that in tandem with our anti-cheat and just kind of try to limit how many of those cases that we are, and then obviously working with the reports that players give out. It's a big help, knowing kind of you guys as the fan base help us identify those, and our systems identify, and eventually, we'll keep a good handle on that.
Yeah. Another change here to Poppy Bomb specifically, I believe, Jolt, and the way just knockbacks work in general. Can you explain, almost in the way that I think we got the Druggist explanation, how the system kind of worked? How was the knockback sort of changed? Because Bomb King was another one where if you built for mobility, as a damage character, Bomb King could clear most of the map in one single Poppy Bomb.
Yeah, so this was very similar to the kind of Druggist treatment. And again, I think it was also bit of an oversight on our part of just kind of not attaching how much the community enjoyed that part, but again, functionally it was an actual abusable exploit. There were certain points on the knockback that good players, whether they realized it or not, were able to identify a specific vector on that Poppy Bomb knockback where it would actually scale exponentially in really weird situations where you could get these kind of situations. I'm sure some of you have had the situation where you're on the point, you have a Poppy Bomb that hits you, and then you go into space program out into Mars, and you're not sure why all of a sudden he had this like monumental, Zeus-wide crazy knockback that ruins the world, right?
Yeah.
And that was just kind of like, again, it was a bit of a bug where sometimes the knockbacks would just scale in really weird ways. So we fixed that. We hope that we kind of lined up the knockbacks back to what they were, and again, now that these new systems are coming in for flight and knockbacks and managing momentum in the air, we have a lot more tools that allows us to tweak those characters. So please kind of keep giving your feedback on the Bomb King general knockback changes, the Druggist flight changes, and as we go into the next patch, we can keep updating them, make those kind of feel the right way without them having those weird kind of like small 1% situations where really good players could exploit that in a way that no other player could. We wanted to make sure that it was, any player, if they feel like they're playing well enough, can succeed with the character. It's not requiring you to do a very specific exploit.
Gotcha. All right, Cora here, a little big healer player. Is Cauterize going to be looked at or nerfed? It's pretty scary at rank 3.
I mean, all right. So we already talked about the new champion. Screw it. We'll talk about what's coming up too. I mean,
you guys are getting to give him all. He's giving it all up real quick.
This is why I guess this is why we do live Q&As. So they just pin me in a corner. We're gonna kind of talk about this a little bit later, probably after the holiday, but. We are planning to work through a Season 1 update. So right now we are technically in preseason, kind of the start of the open beta, kind of get people into Paladins and get used to it. So right now the team is working really hard on getting Season 1 kind of working. This will be our chance to kind of target some of the bigger kind of long-standing issues in the community, stuff like Cauterize's impact, aggression, and whether or not it should be picked up. Is that a trap for new players comparatively to their counter cards and its effectiveness against blast shields and Haven, and the effectiveness of when you get to 20-30% damage reduction, you're playing Kinessa late game. You don't really have a lot of options to counter that. Specifically that, and then Wrecker, obviously the Wrecker, like the balance between Wrecker, shield health, and tank health, making kind of massaging that, and making that feel better. And also, why not? We're looking at the card system too. We're looking at ways to make the card system a little bit more interesting and impactful, and ways to kind of bring some really awesome ideas into the character kits. So potentially, if we wanted to do, maybe there's a situation where we do want Druggist to fly really fast or Bomb King go really far. Maybe there's a card system that allows you to do that. So we're kind of looking at all those things and really figuring out what Season 1's going to be. Obviously, we have the holidays coming up and HRX and kind of things, and we'll have more information to share in the future. I wish I could give you guys more, but you kind of caught me off guard here, and I guess we're talking about new champions since Season 1.
Paladins closed console beta info. Date? Progress? Question mark?
What?
Closed console beta info.
Oh boy.
Paladins on console.
You guys aren't gonna let me off easy, are you?
Give him an inch.
I wish we had more to share on console. We are working on console. Console's getting pretty close. We're actually sending out, I believe this week we sent out 4,000 more PS4 beta keys for Paladins. We have a lot of keys going out for Xbox as well, so we have those kind of going. We have core development teams that are focused primarily on getting Paladins out on console as soon as we can. We should have kind of more information coming in the next month or two, kind of just driving what the schedule that's going to look like. We've actually done a lot of work around the controls and making kind of console feel really good. So we're pretty happy with a lot of the champions and how they're coming along and how they're feeling with the controller. And just, we're, there's a portion of the studio that really loves console, and we think Paladins will be a good fit. So we're pushing that along.
Roy, what product do you use in your hair?
I use, it's called Matte.
That's the first time I've not been asked this question on stream.
I get to divert some of that.
I'm in the shadow now.
I think I forget the brand. I think it's like L'Oreal Matte or something like that. It's a kind of like a dispersal. It's a more of a cream, like a cream.
I use L'Oreal too.
Yeah?
I think there's something to that.
Yep.
I think there's something to it.
I recognize it.
L'Oreal's the brand, boys.
Maybe we're born with it.
Lore.
It's Maybelline.
So champion lore.
Lore, yes,
Lore.
Lore the big one. Lori the champion. This is an interesting question. It's something that, we are, lore. It's something that we're kind of coming to agreements on. We're kind of working on it internally. I wouldn't say that we have kind of a rapid release plan.
Not the priority.
Yeah, we want to make sure that everything's working together, but we are, kind of getting the creative minds together and getting the lore out. I mean, obviously, a lot of that's in the game already, so you kind of see based on the characters and how they're developed and that kind of thing. But I wish we had more to share on Lori.
Lore. Is Skye going to be reworked / buff? Underperforms at medium and high levels of play.
So that's that would be a great example of something that the team is looking at for season 1, right? Kind of looking at champions that we don't really want champions to be too strong for low levels of play or new players, and then not really used at high levels. And one way is we can look at characters like that is give them a specific kind of purpose or counter. Obviously with Skye's ult, the ult will destroy all shields, so she has a way to kind of break up death ball metas. One of the things that kind of just didn't work, just to be honest about it, didn't work as well as we thought it was going to work. She can't really get in as often to break up those death balls.
Also, Paladins isn't super centric about the ults. It's more about like your base kit, what you can do as a player, the gameplay, your shot, where's it at. You can't just lean on an ultimate. You can't pick a character just because of an ultimate.
That's right. So we are looking at, obviously she has % HP damage on her poison bolts.
She does. She actually shreds tanks.
One option for us going into Season 1 would be to kind of maybe embrace that more. Let her be the tank killer, right? So maybe she has, some kind of burst damage coming out of stealth, and she's good for flanking and picking off squishies. But maybe one way to build her, potentially in the new card system, or kind of ways to look at that is if they're building a big tank lineup, you get Wreckers, she has the ult to clear the shields, and then she has a lot of good % HP shred that allows her to be a really strong counter tank. If you think about it too, I mean, you can hit all three.
Anti-heal.
Yeah, and then you can hit all 3 poison bolts on a big target. You can't really miss Makoa when you're doing your poison bolts, right?
Good point.
Kind of, there's some good ways to kind of build her into that.
Tell that to the Skies in my game. How is the match in voice system? I guess in-game voice.
In-game VoIP. It is still being worked on. That's not the best answer you want to hear, but it's obviously with a lot of console work and Season 1 preparation and new champions. Obviously, we actually are working on 4 champions right now. So we have a lot of champions in the pipe, a lot of things going on. So that's definitely really high up on our list. We want to get that in, especially,
Awesome. So the changes to Grox Healing Rain. Obviously, this was a bug, something unintended. Was healing for too much.
Healing for 4x the amount.
Yeah, a little bit too much there.
Yeah.
But now that it's kind of like, if people feel like Grox just got buffed, but now it feels like he just got nerfed because everybody was so kind of used to running that Healing Rain there, even at the top level, it's still feeling not super impactful.
Yeah, no, it's something that we think a lot about when we look at Grox, right? Because there's definitely those champions where they can have a really big impact. But something that we're really sorry to hear and something that we don't like hearing is that, a champion that has really big impact, either you don't enjoy having that impact or it doesn't feel like you have a big impact. We want everyone who's playing the game to feel like everything they're doing has a really strong result on the match, or they excel at what they do. And one thing we're trying to work on for all the champions is isolate what is really great about that champion and then kind of trimming some of the things that are around it and make them really good at it, right? Like Eevee's a good example that we really just committed to her mobility.
Yeah.
And there's no one in the game on an average base that can match her on her just ability to just blink in and out, ice block, soar around, get the cards heal, blink again, ice block. She has that kind of motion, and we want to make sure we maintain that.
Yeah.
So for Grox, we actually, when the bug came about, there was 4xing the healing rain. We actually saw him shot up to the #1 win rate period on all levels of play. Like he was just
and that was over
dominating.
a really short amount of time.
Well, you actually think about it, that was following the buff to the totem health. And win rate isn't something that we kind of look at by itself, right? There's a lot of other stats, and we look at different levels of play and different skill levels. We try to balance around about a platinum level, right, where most players are not, they're playing their characters correctly, they're playing the meta, they're fitting into their roles, they're hitting most of their shots, they're not missing a lot of things.
Yeah.
We don't want to balance around the top end, absolute top end, because most players can't play that way, although that's one of our big kind of discussion points, and actually the esports team, including you and Evan, talk a lot to the teams and gather that feedback and send it over to the dev team, which is very helpful, but kind of aiming around that kind of mid-platinum level. But for Grox, that actually had a huge impact to his ability to kind of just heal everyone full and reaction.
Yeah.
So, every time we make those kind of abilities, we like to have a really strong impact, but then a counter for it. But when it had that bug and also the totem health went up by a lot, I mean, we had almost 700 health to the totem. Those two combined meant you couldn't really counter it because Grox would stand in front of it or Fernanda would stand in front of it, and they were just healing out of control.
There's nothing more frustrating than getting like Fernanda or Makoa down, and then they throw the shield down, the totem comes down, you just see all your hard work just erased like nothing ever happened.
So we'll keep an eye on Grox. One thing that's been requested a lot from the community is a really cool suggestion that we're considering right now for the next season upgrade is making his ult feel like he can stay in the fight longer, something like every time it zaps it heals him, or kind of keeping him healthy so he can stay in there. The ult itself was actually an interesting kind of situation. It's more about the debuffs, right, because it slows enemies, it heals allies. But when you're going in there zapping people with lightning, the expectation isn't the same. So we're kind of looking at the design overall to see how we can make that feel a little better for Grox and also have him be able to use that ultimate in a more consistent basis.
Awesome. So a confirmation that the B key and or known as the emote in the game, that they actually force you to go through the full animation instead of previously where you could cancel the emote at any point. So that's actually something that high-level players talk to me about. So they would use it to get kind of that third-person peek around, and you can still cancel it with shooting or taking action using an ability, but you never know what could upset them, and that is kind of like one of those things where they don't want to be forced into that situation. Do you have any insight as to why that was made the way that it was?
They say it's for competitive, but it's after killing someone. They're just being BM. Because I do it too, right? I mean, that's kind of like, it's the way you end top player. It's like, I got to quadruple after the mode as fast as I can. This has to be the end of the play, right? So that was unintended. We don't want it to be. We have to do the whole thing. Actually, right now, you do actually have to activate an ability or shoot to break it, which was just a bug we're fixing for the next update. Previously, you could move, and we want to make sure that's free. There will be kind of like a minimum time, like half a second or a second, depending on the emote, where you kind of you have to kind of wait that time, and then you can do it that way. You can't just kind of pop in and out very weirdly. But waiting the full animation is not intended. Just so you guys know, just to kind of make sure you're aware, if you shoot, you will actually cancel it. If you move, you won't, which is a little less natural. So we're going to fix that for the next update.
A couple people concerned about Cassian and Druggist being nerfed, massively overperforming in high levels. That's kind of interesting to me. If you want to talk about, I mean, as far as mobility and balance, like those are, and Druggist and Cassie are almost two kind of pillars of what I think comes to mind. If you're hitting everything, everything's going your way, you have good mobility, good damage and all that, but you never feel like there's just nothing you could do against a Cassie or an Druggist.
Yeah.
I don't know if I vibe with that question so much.
Looking at Cassie and Druggist, I mean, those are high skill ceiling champions, right? So what we don't want to do is kind of nerf those champions for the top level players, because right now, actually the mid to platinum, gold, silver level of play, Cassie and Druggist are actually on the bottom end of the game as far as performance.
There you go.
So they're just not as usually at those levels you don't really actually get a big benefit from playing them, but the top end they're very good. So obviously, if we nerf those down, they get kind of shifted into a bad spot, even worse. For most players, I mean, some of you out there may kind of resonate with this if you're going to have a gold or platinum player. You may think, why are you nerfing these characters? When I play them, I do okay, or maybe I just do, but when I face them, they're not as bad. But when you watch tournaments, they're very good. So in those kind of situations, we explained this a couple patches back, but we're actually looking at those champions going into Season 1 and how to kind of position them better. right? Because if you think about it, Androxus, right now doesn't really use his right click all that much. Defiance, because of the inaccuracy and the way it hits and that kind of thing, the damage loss versus his main hand doesn't really kind of make a difference. You get really close and get that thing. So actually, we're looking in Season 1 how to shift his right click to be, more an active part of his kit, and then what can he kind of maybe some slight adjustments in other places to kind of bring him in line to kind of lower that skill ceiling. Actually, not even lower the skill ceiling. We like it being high. We like Cassie and Androxus being there. It's more just about making it more accessible and a little more well-rounded without kind of hurting too much. So those are the ones we want to be careful, make sure that we're making the right changes, and then obviously getting those changes out onto a PTS environment so players can play them and give feedback and talk about it.
Sure. People already commenting. Where'd that question go? We don't want to nerf high skill ceilings, and you look at Drogos nerf. So the difference, I think, in that, what Drogos was doing, it wasn't it was a higher level play, I think, but all things told, it wasn't like the hardest mechanical thing to pull off. More of the problem with that was just what it was doing, how it was circumventing, things like map design, what the character was intended, where he, like the speed at which he was able to reach places like that. It was just unintended, at a core level. Because you look at a character like Cassie, pretty much everyone runs Incitement 4. And it's a great mobility card.
Yep.
But it's not absurd. Like, she's going to roll, but then you can hit her. It's not like she's gone.
Right.
She's just off. She's clered the map with one F.
She didn't go SpaceX.
Yeah, exactly. Like, that's kind of that's the balance you got to strike there.
Well, with Drogos, one of the things that we really like when we play Drogos, and kind of, all of us are out in live and we play test every day, right? We like the fact that there's kind of a skill ceiling with Fire Spit and how to use it, how to interact with it. And also kind of landing your shots after a thrust, going up on someone, and also positioning yourself in a way so you're not a sitting duck in the air, and kind of how to interact with that mobility. And then even just kind of looking at Salvo, right? Salvo is actually another situation, kind of like Defiance, where we feel there just isn't a great enough use for it right now. We're going to look at how to improve that going into Season 1 and kind of talk about that. So, Salvo could also be a way for us to increase that skill ceiling even more, of choosing when do I use Salvo, how do I interrupt, that kind of thing, and how to tweak that ability to be more part of his kit. And again, there could be a world where we kind of create a flank character that has that kind of difficult booster jetpack kind of flanking mobility, but for someone with as much control and as much damage as Drogos, we don't really want him to be flank level mobility. But it's not that the core mechanic itself is something that we dislike, and there's a potential that we just add a character that is under the flank role that has burst damage that actually plays the way Drogos would at a very high movement kind of jet plane style.
Yeah. Just a quick reminder, guys, we are taking questions in chat. We're looking at our Twitters as well, so tweet at HiRezPrettyHair, HiRezDrybear. Also, feel free to keep continuing on here in Twitch chat. One question here about ice mines and map design going into Season 1. We'll be looking at things like that kind of, because it's kind of in that perpetual where there's oftentimes a 3-3 situation based on the size of the map. But, in my opinion, it's not a bad thing to have varying map size. Like, Ice Mines is kind of cool in that it's, like, by far, the biggest map.
Yeah, so when we look at, obviously the feedback forums and how maps are being looked at, we're actually personally not too happy with the way that Ice Mines and Frozen Guard are sitting. We are actually looking at potentially even kind of bigger reworks for those maps as we kind of go into next year. Nothing that we've kind of finalized or kind of really like about it, but yeah, we are aware of that. One of the things that's really stands out about Ice Mines is the overall length of the push, actually kind of success rates of payloads when you start them and how often you finish them. And the length of that one is just, we feel just a little bit too long, and also the fact that it goes through, multiple areas that get cut off. It's hard to actually finish a push there. We actually do, we have several new maps that we're working on right now that will kind of improve upon that. Obviously, there's always ways to make that layout better. We have some kind of cool ideas on how to make them fit in the Siege game mode or the Payload game mode, or potentially new game modes even better. And then we'll just kind of, as those new maps come out and you guys give us some feedback, we'll keep tweaking. A lot of things to tweak.
Yeah. Can you explain Grover and his kit? What is he meant to do exactly, and why does he deal more damage at a longer range?
So there's definitely something that kind of people attach to in the early stages of the beta, and that, it's just really satisfying to just chunk someone with a big axe, right?
Trust me, I know.
Like, just, you do it to me all the time as I'm Kinessa, when we're playtesting. Just throw that Grover axe, I peek out, and an axe hits me in the head and just chunks my health or kills me.
Yeah.
Something that's really satisfying for him, but we also previously was melee. We didn't like the fact that such a big creature was just in your face all the time smacking you, so we wanted to kind of allow that to be the case. But because he has so much, AoE healing, persistent healing, burst healing, he works really well with kind of death ball comps, just like Grox in those kind of situations, sticking with a tank and sticking there. We didn't want to just kind of as a balance tweak to make sure that he wasn't also very good up close, right? Because you think about it, if he's very good up close, has very good close range healing, and very good kind of point control, and you put Fernando and Makoa and a Barrack and a Grox in one place,
decisions to be
there's
made.
no way to get out of that, right? So we like the fact that he had close range healing, burst healing, and control of the point. And then when you got closer and closer to him, he did less and less damage, which was more about the support aspect. But he could, uniquely to him, control hallways, control space, control long lines of sight. So if the enemy's running, Sha Lin and Kinessa, he can help the front line sit on the point and hold that.
Yeah.
And then also just kind of, because he has no reload or ammo, right? He can just keep spamming down the long sniper routes and keep the snipers from pressuring the point with those axes without making him this kind of just close range burst healing melee explosion monster.
Yeah. What impact will Season 1 have on ranked? Will there be resets? Have you guys given this any thought yet?
We have, and we haven't come to any kind of major decisions on that just yet. If you guys have any feedback on what you'd like to see, feel free to kind of shoot it out into the ether, Twitter, Reddit, forums. We read everything. I go to bed reading the Reddit and the forums and Twitter, and then I wake up doing the same thing. So if you put it out there, there's a very high chance that most of us will see it.
Will Kinessa's teleporter ability ever deploy faster? Even with the CDR, she seems to die a lot before it goes off.
Kinessa's a big one for us for Season 1, right? When we had her early on, I mean, if a sniper is very, very good and easy, it's a very frustrating experience, right? Because they can catch you off guard, they can one-hit you, those kind of things. But we also don't want it to be, where they are just completely difficult to play and can't be positioned properly. So right now, Kinessa's actually in a decent spot. We want to kind of improve her skill ceiling, potentially even scaling her headshot damage higher than everyone else in the game, so that she has the kind of the opportunity to be very skillful and get those quick shots. But it's not easy to do because we don't want a sniper that's very easy because it kills everybody. And then looking at Transporter, we actually originally intended for the Transporter to be not kind of an on-demand thing, right? We don't want the sniper when you're Buck or you're Edie and you catch the sniper off guard correctly, as you're supposed to be doing as a flank character. We didn't want her to have an instant, okay, I get out and recorrect, right? Because we had that earlier on. Didn't feel that great. It didn't feel like the meta was built for that, right? If you catch her, you should be able to kind of fight her for that. So we're looking at her going to Season 1 and making sure we have some adjustments for her, and then maybe even trying to raise that skill ceiling for her even higher to give those kind of high-level players more options to use Kinessa in a competitive environment.
Awesome. Is the next champion going to be the tank that you just described?
The next champion will not be that tank I probably shouldn't have described.
Whoopsies. Hashtag buff Buck.
Buff Buck. Buck is pretty buff.
He is.
A big dude. The next champion will be a damage character.
Okay.
With an assault.
I think your audio cut out there a little bit. Maybe that's for the best.
Just kind of mumbling and rambling.
So Rejuvenate. I mean, we already talked about items a little bit, but I feel like Rejuvenate is also kind of almost in the spot that Aggression is, like Aggression to Haven versus Rejuvenate to Cauterize. Cauterize just being so much more effective, per rank than Rejuvenate. It almost feels like there's no place for it.
Yeah, so we actually are the entire healing row is a big focus for us as well right now internally.
Yeah.
There's actually, Life Rip has some cool, interesting interactions with some characters. Ruckus in some cases, right? You can play it, if you're doing you're doing recovery damage on Snipe, Kinessa with Life Rip to recover, or Transporter heal. There's some places for that.
I actually grab it on Victor as well, because a lot of times Victor, you're not going to get out of a lot of situations, so sometimes you just got to pedal to the metal and hope you live.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Veteran, how that plays with tanks and how Veteran works overall, because sometimes we just, because it has a percent aspect to it, making tanks too strong previously, and now, when do you pick it up? And then also, Rejuvenate, the same thing, making healers pretty strong. We actually added Rejuvenate in the game to make it so that when you want to do 2, maybe even 3 healers in some cases, there would be an option to make the comp around that. But obviously, that is naturally countered by Cauterize. So there's a question of how impactful can the healing row be in the item store and also how we want to do that. So we're actually working through all of that right now.
Yeah, because I know right now in competitive play, a lot of times the healing tree just kind of comes as a luxury in terms of like, you know, it's not something you really need. It's nice to have a lot of times, but not definitely those necessities like the Haven, like the Cauterize. Let's see here, guys. Keep tweeting the questions. We're scrolling through chat.
I see a couple people talking about the new damage that's coming in. She will actually have a different kind of treatment that will hopefully kind of tweak that damage row a little bit, kind of an option that's different there. Ways to kind of potentially deal with stealth characters or deal with flanking characters in a way that no other damage can. And even being able to focus on a single character, do a lot of damage, and have some impact and space control in ways that other damages can't. Then obviously after that, we have another front line coming very soon. We actually have 2 front lines in the works right now to kind of...
Yeah.
And then another flank, potentially.
Beef him up. Any Shaolin buffs? Taking a look at him, question mark?
We are, and you know, a lot of that comes into how we want to handle card system changes for going into Season 1, right? There's some options there to kind of make him feel part of it. You know, obviously one of the biggest, you know, balance points for him would be planted and how that works with flanks and how they're going to top you, and also how far Impale Arrow can knock you, how long the stun is, and those kind of things. And potentially even like how long it takes to draw the bow and how that works with cards and some other things. Right now, he's actually relatively happy with his balance and where he sits. The fact that, you know, Planet has such a high opportunity cost, you can counter him. And also the fact that all of his stealth mechanics are very, very short, besides the ultimate, like the jump back. It's very short stealth, so you can kind of get around a corner, but people will see you. Even during the ultimate, if you're close enough to Shaolin, you can see him. And getting used to him. We also worked really hard to make sure that he had a lot of audio and visual cues when he's doing things. You kind of react to that, because when you hear "ready," right, you get around a corner and you hide and those kind of things, or you just kind of snipe him.
And then you die.
Yeah. So we're looking at him as well.
Yeah. He's had a pretty good release, I would think. Not too strong, but not too weak. I've definitely enjoyed playing him. I'm not really a huge projectile guy, but I've thoroughly enjoyed playing him.
All right.
A lot more.
All right.
Are you considering or experimenting with a melee character at all, or do you feel the way that the game has changed with a faster TTK and overall design that melee champions wouldn't work?
So we have a melee champion in the game already, Makoa, right?
Yeah.
It's a limited time, right? That's kind of like our test to see.
Yeah.
Generally, we don't want to have melee champions that are in your face a lot.
Yeah, you talked about that with
kind
Grover.
of looking around very quickly with the kind of close-in camera and reacting to things, right? Kind of like, you know, maybe they dash through you and you have to look behind, they dash again. It just becomes a very frustrating experience. So we want to make sure that those melee experiences fit really well, and they're very well choreographed, so you can see when they're coming and react to them. So we do actually have. I need to stop spoiling things. Why do you keep putting me in spots?
Hey, man.
Put me in spots. We are working on.
That would have been good right there. You could have cut it right there, and I would have went on my merry way.
We are looking at a flank character that is more assassin-like, that could have melee properties in some form or another.
No more, no less than that. What about the Illuminate item, the only one that makes you see invisible people? Are you going to change it, remove it? What's the deal?
We like it. It's actually pretty powerful against the 1.5 stealth characters we have in the game. So I think largely it's just because we don't have enough stealth characters to warrant picking it up more often. But you know, if you did have a really good Sky and a really good Shaolin on the enemy team, it would be a consideration of, maybe it's awesome that I can see them from really far away, and when they think they're stealth, they're actually not, right? So there's a strong use for that. There's just not enough stealth characters to make it viable in those situations.
Yeah, so it's not like it's a bad thing. It's also dirt cheap.
It's very inexpensive.
I'm pretty sure it's
so
the cheapest item in the game.
You get rank 2 out of the gate, right? You can buy rank 2 Illuminate almost right out of the gate. So you can get that rank 1 and then come back, and then you're almost already at rank 2 by the time you return to base for the first time.
And Drox's reversal has actually been broken for 3 months now. What's going on? How is it not fixable?
Broken. Might need a little clarification there.
I guess just being shot through. So it's Cred explained it to me a little bit, how it's kind of an interesting ability in terms of when you're playing with people on different pings, you know, when it's actually going to start picking up, registering on your screen versus their screen. They weren't holding it up on my kill cam, blah, 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 this, that, and the other.
Yeah, there's 2 things that we're looking at for reversal. One of them is a more complex problem. If we had a really clean kind of situation to reproduce it, the engineers are working really hard to kind of clean the situation up. It doesn't happen to everybody. I'm sure there's actually some people out there
Yeah.
that don't even know what it is that we're talking about, right? They're just like, it works fine for me. So when, as we get closer and closer to fixing that issue, there's one where sometimes if you're lagging, the reversal won't be in the same spot for all people, so sometimes you can get shot through it, which is not a great situation. And then there's also one where sometimes the animation or the coloring of the shield will linger after he's already lowered his hand, so sometimes you don't know when to shoot it. So we're working on cleaning that up.
Awesome. So that seems like mostly a ping issue, which is just kind of comes with the territory.
It's a tough one to track down. We're like I said, we have engineers working on it, and hopefully we'll get that fixed.
Yeah, hope that answers your question. That was actually from Stolzy. If you want more clarification on that, go ahead.
Stolzy doesn't know anything about Androxus.
That kid can't play.
Why is he bothering with Androxus question?
Why does Fernando keep catching nerfs? Just because he's a high pick and competitive doesn't make him broken. People have to realize the difference and fix people shooting through Nando shield.
So, I mean, if you look at Fernando overall, he actually has a lot in his kit. He has the highest HP of all the frontliners.
Yeah.
The highest shield
By
health
far.
of all the frontliners. A very reusable, repositional charge. A fireball that can deal lots of damage to lots of people.
Oh yeah, we saw that this weekend.
Through. And then kind of just ways to control all that. So overall, he actually was pretty significantly overperforming in almost all levels of play. But we like the fact that he's accessible, right? He's kind of like the easy tank you pick up right away. He's in armor. He's got a big shield. It makes sense. So we want to kind of keep that. But we were kind of adjusting based on all levels of play, even all the way down to kind of bronze and kind of even new players. Fernando was overperforming, so we adjusted there. And also, this could play pretty nicely into re-looking at tank health versus shield health versus Wrecker going into the future.
Yeah. What inspires you to make Paladins? There's a nice little philosophical question. When you got into game design, did you, I guess, I'll help him narrow this down. What was a shooter kind of where your heart lied? Did you have any specific place your heart lied getting into game design, the kind of game that you wanted to make?
Yeah, so, I got to give, just to kind of separate it out, I got to give credit to the entire development team, right? We're never one person, and we actually have a really awesome kind of level environment here at HiRez where everyone's able to share their thoughts, and sometimes, from whether it's from art or platform or programming or everywhere. I mean, you see like people from all disciplines kind of coming in and putting their minds to it. We actually have people all over the office that play Paladin, so we gotta give credit to them. But I think largely we set out to kind of create a FPS primarily, but one that has enough kind of other customization elements in it that would allow you to kind of play it in your own way, make it personal, and kind of grow from there. So that was the core of what we were looking at. So we're kind of pulling it all together. So it was aimed at an FPS. We know we wanted to do like kind of another Tribes style gameplay. We haven't done an FPS in a while, so that kind of picked it up. And then we wanted more customization and interesting options, which is also why we're looking at the card system.
How do you feel about the current point system? Should a capture, a defense, and attack all be worth the same? And I actually have something a little bit to tack on. It's based on like the distance that you push, right? Because you could capture, say on ice mines, you push it inches every single time, inches from conversion, and then you lose one capture point and lose the entire game. It doesn't feel like, oh man, I just lost that game of Paladins.
Yeah, no, the point for defense and then the 3-3 situation, we are still looking at. Now, obviously, we don't want it to be the case where if you won for half the game, that's impossible for the other team to come back because you have so much momentum.
Right.
And we also don't want vice versa to happen where you've won 90% of the game and then you got to the very end and they won 1 point and won. So there's some pieces there. Now, obviously, if you, depending on the map, if you kind of captured and pushed, failed to push 3 times and then you lost the capture point, that's not as 90% to 10, right? You actually, they were able to stop you in the push conversion every single time, and then you also lost the capture point towards the end. So there is some things we're looking at that, and obviously giving credits for defenders, giving credits for some things to come back. We're all looking at that as well.
Will there ever be more than 16 cards for champions, or will it stay a max of 16?
Why not 20?
There you go, Season 1, boys. The hype.
Why not more?
New game modes be added.
We're working on new game modes. We are looking at also potentially looking at PvE modes, ways to kind of do specific encounters. Maybe you face 5 Makoas with a whole bunch of HP and they have ults that charge really fast or something like that. Yes.
Yes.
Yes is my short answer.
Let's see here. Keep the questions coming, guys, on Twitter as well. It's a lot easier. Add us in the chat if you're asking a question in chat, and we'll be able to see that a little bit easier there.
Will Sky's lack of vertical movement be addressed? A wall run folded into her kit would give her a lot more options for flank routes and would break nothing based on Andro having a glide folded into his air dash. That's more of a kind of a map learning thing, right? We don't want characters to have answers for everything. In fact, most of the kind of idea or the fantasy behind each character is to find what it is that they're good at, what it is that makes them different or unique.
Yeah.
What is the fantasy behind it, and embracing that as much as possible, right? So again, like Eevee with a whole lot of mobility, or kind of Barrick with a lot of tools in his kit, like an engineer being able to react to things. We want to embrace that more, and so we don't have any plans to get Sky up on walls or up above, right? We like the fact that she has long durations of stealth, a lot of movement speed, a lot of distraction, ways to block vision with the smoke screen. She has a lot of tools that allow her to clear space and misdirect people and confuse people, that allow her to sneak behind the ramp and go above or go down and kind of have that control there. And the fact that her ult is so massive, right? She has a lot of distance she can control with that. It allows her to really kind of make up for that fact in her own way without just kind of giving her an answer for every situation.
Sure. Plans to incorporate a small or quick melee damage for close fights and finishing off low targets without having to reload.
Yes. I hate the answer, but we're looking into it. It's my least favorite thing to say on stream, but it's there's only so much we can do at once.
Yeah.
So we are kind of considering that and looking to see if we can do it, because there's definitely a situation where someone's really low and you want to just punch them.
Yeah.
Maybe they're not low and you want to punch them.
Who are your favorite champions to play? Top 3.
Top 3. Number 1's definitely Kinessa.
Yep.
I love me some Kinessa. I play Kinessa all the time. I
Dang,
love
she is
Shaolin,
fun.
right? I love sniper characters. The third one actually has been shifting depending on the month. Play a decent amount of Cassie. I actually have been starting to, just because every time I get into like a competitive queue or a normal queue, it's like everyone's picked their champions and we need a front line. So like I need like a good front line in my core group. Bakoa, I've been picking him up a little bit, getting that turtle action in there. So
I love it.
There's a couple characters. Actually, last night I started playing Buck. I haven't played too much Buck.
Yeah.
Kind of figuring him out, get a little more in there, right? But yeah.
I actually just played him yesterday.
Action.
For me, it's probably Eevee, Andro, and then Makoa for sure. Probably in that order as well.
Makoa,
Yeah.
Nando.
I really enjoy.
You are a terrifying Nando. I'll tell you that much.
It's just I have to kill you in the playtest because I know no one like you'll.
If I sit there,
he will slaughter my team if I don't. So it's like someone's got to do it. I don't like being that guy. But
I just remember just sniping in his Kinessa, and I hear this big thud of a turtle walking around behind me, way off the side of the map, not helping his team at all. Just turn around.
Man. So the reintroduction of player deployable walls. I know this is something that was on Shaolin for a little bit, didn't make it into his release, but you mentioned that it's a cool mechanic. Didn't super fit with him, but it's definitely something that is interesting and being looked at.
Yeah, so to my earlier point of kind of creating a class fantasy for every character, make sure that those champions fit within what they do. We felt that didn't fit with Shaolin, but based on the playtesting and the PTS and how the experience went, we actually started working on a champion that does all that. So like that is the fantasy for this character potentially, is to be able to do space control, wall creation, barriers, those kind of things. That's deep in the pipeline, right? And, we do actually kind of start working on new maps and champions all the time. Some of them actually never even see the light of day or come out at all. But when we start feeling really good about it, we start kind of putting a lot of effort into making them come out, and that's just where everything goes.
This is a good one, actually. This is something that I dealt with today. Any future update to allow credits to update live while in the shop instead of having to close and reopen it. So to clarify on that, I guess I had 299 credits. And I opened the shop. I was sitting there poised, ready to buy my thing at the start of the round and take off, right? But I was just sitting there, and now you actually have to close and reopen it to get it to update your credit value.
Yeah, that's something we want to fix.
Awesome. Any future... Oh, I just read that one. Can you make MVP poses and emotes buyable for coins and gems to help free-to-play and pay-to-play players get them easier?
So we're We like them being in the chest, right? Because a lot of times
Yeah.
getting those is kind of a nice surprise instead of seeking them out and getting them where they are. So I think we'll kind of keep those in there.
Spray system question mark.
We're working on it.
Hey.
Working on something. The giggle. Get a little giggle. We probably got a little more time, maybe a couple more questions, and then kind of close it out here.
Yeah.
You guys want?
Are you guys taking a look at the friends list / messaging system? See so much skin concepts on Reddit. Does your team do anything with like that?
Yeah. Yeah, it's something that we want to improve, right? And as we kind of get more UI systems in the game, we kind of rework or look at the old ones. We actually have a phenomenal UI team. I'm actually every day I'm always impressed with what we've been able to come up with and the things that we've been able to create, specifically on the UI side. So it'll keep getting better and better over time.
Any word on the crossbow?
The crossbow.
What crossbow?
The crossbow.
Sometimes I feel like chat knows more than I do.
Hopefully we'll have some more information on that very, very soon to talk about. It's looking pretty sweet.
Pretty sweet.
What
Bacon
got.
5-0.
What
I need more than 1,000 friends.
You guys can't get everything. I already dropped way more than I probably should have. Okay, that's what live Q&As are for. You guys got your juicy bits. Gotta wait till the Christmas are wrapped under the Christmas tree.
Yeah. Bacon 5-0 says, I need more than 1,000 friends. Please help. I'm in the same boat.
Yeah?
I feel so bad. Like I can't accept any more friend requests because I was just like,
you're at your cap.
I was real excited about it when I started streaming. I was just accepting everybody.
Yep, I did that, and then I hit the lag cap in Smite, where just my friends list, if I opened it, my game would explode. So I just, you know what? I mean, you want to be able to have as many friends as possible. You don't want to have so many you can't interact with them.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, thank you all so much for coming out, for your questions on Twitter, for Twitch, hanging out for the whole hour. You got a lot of good stuff out of Drybear here today.
Never take me here again.
It's a very special episode of Dev Q&A. My name has been HiRezPrettyHair. This is HiRezDrybear, our lead designer, our fearless leader. Thank you guys so much for joining us. We'll see you next time.